Most people lose power not because they're weak, but because they talk too much. Think about it. How many times have you explained yourself only to feel like you said something you shouldn't have? That quiet regret creeping in right after the words leave your mouth. That moment when the room goes silent and you realize you've revealed more than you intended. That's not just awkwardness. That's power slipping away. Because in a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, the person who controls their words controls everything. There was a young executive climbing fast in a competitive company. Sharp mind, strong presence, always ready with something to say. In meetings, he spoke often, sometimes too often. He added ideas, corrected others, filled every silence like it was his responsibility. At first, people admired him. They saw confidence, intelligence, drive. But slowly, something shifted. His boss began interrupting him more often. Colleagues stopped sharing sensitive details around him. And people started remembering not just what he said, but what he shouldn't have said. His words became liabilities. Then came the big moment, a high-stakes pitch in front of top clients. He wanted to impress, so he kept going, adding more details, more explanations, more persuasion. Until his boss leaned forward and cut him off cold, saying, "You've already said too much." The room changed instantly. The deal slipped. And over time, so did his position. Meanwhile, another colleague in the same room barely spoke. He listened more than he talked, observed more than he reacted. But when he finally said something, it was sharp, precise, impossible to ignore. He said less, but meant more. And he was the one who got promoted. There's a powerful idea in Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power that explains this perfectly. Greene writes, "Always say less than necessary." It sounds simple, almost obvious, but it goes against everything most people naturally do. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Here's what most people don't understand. The more you say, the less control you have. Every extra word increases the chances of saying something unnecessary, something revealing, something that can be used against you. Words expose you. They show your intentions, your insecurities, your limits. Silence, on the other hand, does the opposite. It creates space, and in that space, people start to project their own assumptions onto you. They assume confidence, they assume depth, they assume control. Silence makes you appear stronger than you might even feel. When you over-explain, you don't come across as smarter. You come across as uncertain, like you're trying to convince not just others, but yourself. And people can sense that instantly. That's the psychology behind it. Power isn't just about what you say. It's about what you choose not to say. The problem is, most people are conditioned to fill silence. We're taught to justify ourselves, to explain our actions, to speak up constantly so we're not overlooked. Silence feels uncomfortable, almost threatening, like something is wrong if no one is talking. So we rush to fill it. And in doing so, we give away leverage without even realizing it. We reveal too much. We make ourselves predictable. And once people can predict you, they can control how they respond to you. Now imagine doing the opposite. At work, instead of speaking at every opportunity, you listen carefully. You pause before responding. When you finally speak, your words are clean, direct, and deliberate. People notice the shift immediately. They lean in because they've learned that when you speak, it actually matters. In business, this becomes a powerful advantage. The person who talks less in a negotiation often ends up gaining more. Silence creates pressure. It makes the other person uncomfortable, and in that discomfort, they start revealing information, adjusting their position, sometimes even negotiating against themselves. And you don't have to force anything. You just stay composed, controlled, and present. In relationships, this law becomes even more subtle. Not every disagreement needs a long explanation. Not every emotion needs to be verbalized in the moment. Sometimes saying less prevents things from escalating. It allows space for emotions to settle instead of intensify. When you stop over-explaining yourself, something interesting happens. People begin to respect you more. Not because you're louder, but because you're more grounded. You're no longer chasing validation through words. You're expressing certainty through restraint. On a personal level, this is where the real challenge begins. Learning to stay silent when your instinct is to react, to prove, to defend. That requires discipline and requires awareness. It forces you to confront your need for approval and your discomfort with stillness. But that's where growth happens, because controlling your words means you're learning to control your impulses, and that kind of control changes everything. Of course, there's a darker side to this. Saying less can be misunderstood. It can make you seem distant, cold, even calculating. Some people use silence as a weapon to manipulate, to create confusion, to dominate conversations without saying much at all. And if you take this too far, you risk breaking trust. People need communication. They need clarity. They need honesty. So the goal isn't silence for the sake of silence. It's intention, knowing when to speak and when not to. Knowing how to say just enough and nothing more. Because in the end, power isn't about dominating every conversation. It's about making every word count. It's about presence, control, and precision. It's about understanding that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is saying nothing at all. So the next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Let the silence sit for a second longer than feels comfortable. Notice how people react. Notice how the energy shifts. Notice how much more control you actually have. Because the loudest voice in the room is rarely the most respected. But the one who speaks with restraint, with intention, with purpose, that's the one people listen to. That's the one people remember. If you found this powerful, make sure you like the video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more content like this. Also drop a comment below and tell me, do you think silence is power or weakness? And what topic should I cover next?